Welcome back, everyone. It is Crane Bramp, and this is our March 2020 edition of Game Forward, a new monthly feature where we cover the coming PC game releases for every month. We cover everything from AAA titles to early access titles, indie games, and everything in between. And the month of March is bringing some pretty awesome releases. In fact, the entire year is filled with awesome releases, and I think that 2020 is shaping up to be what could be one of the best years so far for PC gaming or gaming as a whole. For hardcore gamers like me that like to have the latest stuff, it's also going to be a very expensive year. As always, you will find full links to developers, websites, the trailers for each game, Twitter for all the games coming out, right down there in the description. Remember, support those developers and show them some love for these awesome games. We begin the month of March on the 3rd with Curse of the Dead Gods, an early access title on Steam produced by Passtech Games. CODG is an isometric roguelike where you play Sir Henry McAllister, a British explorer from the early 1900s. McAllister discovers a lost Mayan temple and, being an explorer, explores. Upon entering the temple, he's cursed by a Mayan god to escape the temple, filled with traps and beasties, or be brought back to the entrance to the temple every time that he dies to try once again. The art style looks fantastic, gameplay is difficult and skill-based, and allows quite a bit of choice and customization. From what gameplay I've seen, progression is similar to Slay the Spire with its multipath tree-like progression, with path choices and icons representing the encounter that you'll face at each choice. Think of it as a roguelike mixed with a procedurally generated dungeon crawler. I get a Diablo hack and slash feel with loot and a curse system that assigns you curse points for every room or encounter that you have. Once you reach a certain level, you receive a curse that affects your gameplay during that playthrough. You can have up to 5 of these, and this adds variety to every playthrough that you have. There are swords, spears, bows, guns, and more when it comes to weapons, and dozens of enemies with champions and bosses to face off against to really test you. For those looking for a new, difficult dungeon crawler slash roguelike, Passtech Games may just have the title for you on March 3rd. Also on March 3rd, we have Warlords of New York, Massive Studios' expansion to The Division 2. Although there have been 4 major content updates for Year 1, Warlords of New York brings the first full expansion to the game, as well as a number of new gameplay elements and other features. Warlords brings players back to New York, introducing a new threat in the form of a rogue division agent that has taken over Lower Manhattan with the help of 4 other rogue agents. Taking the agents down makes up the 5 missions that will take 4 players through the expansion, with each mission centering around neutralizing one of the 5 rogue agents. There are also a number of safe houses, control points, and side quests in the expansion. Warlords takes place in the summer, differentiating the expansion from the core game, but keeping it firmly in the same timeline. The expansion plays like the original with some UI updates, a new stat library, and a level cap increase to 40. Global events make a return, with their experience counting towards seasonal levels, while a new raid, the Foundry, is coming. Touted by Ubisoft as their most difficult raid yet. Lastly, Dark Zones are getting an upgrade, new loot, and a renewed focus on PvP. Seasons for Warlords will release beginning a week after the release, and then will come out every 90 days, as did the seasons for Year 1. March 5th brings us a new contender in the survival game genre with Stand Survival. This early access title launches on Steam and has some great early gameplay out as well as videos. Billed as an open-world survival game with quests, crafting, and extensive combat, graphics look well developed for an early access title, and the developer has kept a pretty active devlog, which is always nice. The game takes place on an unknown island, and you, a journalist, must investigate the island, uncovering mysteries and information about secret government experiments. The game has a developed ammo system and an extensive vehicle system that allows upgrades to engines, fuel, tanks, and bodies, as well as adding trailers to your vehicles. The early access version will launch with a working skill system with 16 skills, with more to be added later. Experience is earned through quests, of which there are several categories, killing enemies and finding locations, thus putting some emphasis on exploration as well as combat. All in all, Withstand looks like a worthy entry into the genre, and I, for one, will be picking up a copy on March 5th. March 6th greets us with Yes, Your Grace, a 2D pixel art kingdom management simulator where you play as the ruler of a struggling nation. Wait, is there any other type of nation? Well, sitting on his or her throne to hear the never-ending requests of your advisors and subjects before you pass your royal judgment upon them. You'll need to balance resources, figure out if your petitioners are actually telling you the truth, and even try your best to be a decent dad to your kids. In Yes, Your Grace, you don't just rule from the throne, but you can explore set sections and locations of the city as you play. The gameplay is a balancing act between all the competing interests and the 4 resources that you must maintain: gold, supplies, army, and happiness, which is also known as content. Every one of your subjects in your family wants a handout, and you've only got so much to pass around. On top of that, your subjects and your family, well, let's say they'll lie and cheat to you. And bad decisions, well, are there ever any really good decisions in management sims? Can haunt you for the entire game. Gameplay happens in weak time units with a number of petitioners, problems, and even family issues to deal with along the way. Looks like a solid entry into the genre with some interesting tweaks added in. Moving right into the second week of March, March 11th features Moon Studios bringing us Ori and the Will of the Wisps, the long-awaited sequel to the award-winning Ori and the Blind Forest. First teased back in 2017, the platformer brings back its amazing and unique art style, along with a host of new features. The side-scroller includes exploration that will have you backtracking to find newly accessible areas, while progressing through a story promised to be just as emotional, if not more so, than the original. Will of the Wisps brings improvements to combat, as well as a new suite of weapons and abilities, including swords, bows, and even explosive projectiles. Devs have compared the new combat system to Dark Souls, not particularly in difficulty, but rather in that each enemy will have specific attack patterns and weaknesses to learn and exploit, rather than being a pure button-mashing hack and slash. This time around, Ori has 3 slots fillable by weapons, skills, and even some non-combat skills that allow you to really adapt the gameplay to your style. Numerous new mechanics abound. Ori's movement has been expanded with a grappling hook, as well as a burrow skill that doubles as a movement and an attack. Abilities are upgradable. There are shards, which are equipable, upgradable items that give you abilities like compasses and triple jumps, along with an expanded amount of NPCs that sell you goodies and provide you with side quests. Ori and the Will of the Wisps looks like it's definitely shaping up to be one of those must-play games for platformers this year. Bandai and developer Byking jump into the ring on March 13th with My Hero 1's Justice 2. This sequel brings its arena fighting action back to all 4 major platforms: PC, PS4, Xbox, and Switch. The original characters are back, along with a host of new characters, bringing the total playable character count to 40. This greatly expands the roster of player characters from the first. The first game came out in the early days of the anime series, thus making the first roster a bit light, but Justice 2 looks to not just bring it current with the anime, but even appears to have at least one villain from the 4th season. Gameplay follows the general theme of the original. It's a tag team fighter that allows you to switch between a team of 3 heroes that you pick. MHOJ2's new playable characters include Sir Night-Eye, as well as new features such as Sidekick plus Ultra, which allows sidekicks to execute plus Ultra attacks during battles. Unfortunately, this is a pretty heavy release month to compete in. Not only are there two other anime titles, Nioh 2 and One Piece Pirate Warriors 4, out this month, but Justice 2 got sandwiched right in between the Final Fantasy VII remake on the 3rd and Doom Eternal on the 20th. I really think they should have pushed this to another month, but we're going to see how good it does. And speaking of Doom Eternal, the Doomslayer returns to bring the pain on March 20th, bringing all new biomes, enemies, mechanics, and more. This much anticipated sequel to Bethesda's 2016 Doom is one of the most anticipated titles of 2020. The hellish horde has slipped the confines of hell and takes the Slayer on a romp through Earth, Mars, and more as the demons use portals to invade and warp our plane of existence. Doom Eternal is promised to be bigger, badder, and more complex, and harder than the original. Gameplay will have you facing hordes of enemies, each with their own attack styles and ways of being dealt with, while juggling your arsenal of weapons, trying to remember to activate your cooldown abilities, trying to remember to do glory kills for health, and just trying to keep yourself alive. The game is faster paced and more difficult than the original, with new items like grenades for groups of enemies, a new dash move, as well as a flame belch that sets enemies on fire and makes them drop armor pickups when you shoot them. The new mechanics aren't optional, but rather required skills to learn to survive the onslaught of hell. All in all, it's a sadistically hard, visually beautiful, and sure to be on many people's top lists for the year. Another game making absolutely huge waves is Half-Life Alyx, and on March 23rd, gamers finally get their Half-Life fix. Although this isn't the mythical Half-Life 3, Valve has definitely ignited some interest. Half-Life Alyx is a VR game, which, interestingly enough, comes free if you own Valve's VR headset, the Valve Index. Although known for delays, Valve promised in their Reddit AMA on January 22nd of this year that there wouldn't be any delays with Alyx, knowing that for this release they have a very high bar to meet for fans. Alyx is promised, in Valve's own words, to feature all the hallmarks of classic Half-Life gameplay, including world exploration, problem-solving, visceral combat, and an intricately woven story that connects it all with the characters iconic to the Half-Life universe. An interesting note is that Alyx only features one-handed weapons by design, freeing up a hand for dedicated world interaction, movement, items, and more. A particular focus was put into making Alyx different to play than the original protagonist, Gordon Freeman, making her active in conversations and allowing much more narrative to be worked into the game than the original. Set between Half-Life and Half-Life 2, you take on the role of Alyx, who, with her father, are secretly mounting a resistance to the Combines invading aliens. The campaign is said to be just as long as Half-Life 2, which should peg gameplay at around 20 hours. That's pretty significant, especially since it's a VR experience. Another late month entry, Ninja Theory's multiplayer 4v4 brawler, Bleeding Edge, releases on March 24th. Take a hero-based game like Overwatch and apply the concept to a hack-and-slash brawler, and you have the hybrid experiment that is Bleeding Edge. With a unique art style and an impressive roster of heroes, even in beta, Bleeding Edge plans to drop with some weight, trying to make a splash. The game's beta currently has 11 heroes spread across 3 basic styles: damage dealers, supports, and tanks. Each hero is ranked on a difficulty scale from 2 to 5, with the first 11 characters only going up to a difficulty of 2. This leaves 3 entire difficulty classifications to add more heroes to, and the game is supposed to have a large amount of post-launch content. The game's heroes are visually well designed and distinct, each coming with 3 special abilities and the option to choose between 2 special attacks. There are cosmetics, both skins and emotes, a customizable hoverboard that's used to get you around maps quicker, and equipable quote-unquote mods that give you abilities and are unlocked by leveling up. The beta includes 2 modes and 4 maps, with additional content available upon release. The question I think Bleeding Edge will need to answer is whether there's enough room in the already crowded esports brawler field for another game, or whether players will reward Ninja Theory for their take on the genre. Starting our countdown into the end of the month, Bandai makes yet another appearance on our list, bringing Monkey D. Luffy and his band of ne'er-do-wells, the Straw Hat Pirates, back to all platforms with One Piece Pirate Warriors 4 on March 27th. Bandai has stated that the fourth incarnation will continue to pull stories and arcs from the anime, with this installment specifically highlighting the Whole Cake Island arc. Gameplay will also be similar to other releases in the series, with heroes fighting large groups of enemies with absolutely crazy abilities, while dropped into the wild, psychedelic landscape of an anime brought to life, complete with singing trees, chess piece enemies, and towering bosses. The art and animation is beautifully rendered, bringing all the bright colors and the frenetic action and the over-the-topness of anime, One Piece in particular. Pirate 4 looks to shine in co-op mode, with up to 4 players in co-op taking on the anime hordes with online-only exclusive missions and more. Needless to say, March is definitely an anime gamer's month extraordinaire. Not wanting to be outdone by the double game release on March 3rd, March 27th brings out the big guns and drops Tailward's Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord on the same day. Dropping on Steam Early Access, this title was first announced an incredible 7 years ago, and the news rolling before it definitely puts it on the must-play list for me this year. An open-ended sandbox series, Mount and Blade mixes empire building, strategy, political games, role-playing, and even fighting on the battlefield alongside your army into this huge strategy mashup. The original has aged quite a bit, and I'm very excited to see a shiny new edition coming. The original Mount and Blade was one of the first early access success stories on Steam, and there are no reasons to expect anything different with this sequel. Although estimated to stay in early access for a year or so, Tailwords has stated that there will be a wealth of content that will keep players engaged for many hours, and is promised to be both playable as well as stable, even in early access. Obviously, as an early access game, there's only limited info available, but Tailwords has given some base information. M&B 2 will be set in Calradia again, approximately 200 years before the original Mount and Blade. Both the world and combat systems will be expanded. There will be a single-player sandbox campaign, an extensive character progression system, realistic economy, and a variety of multiplayer game modes. The game does carry its full AAA price tag at early access, but the game price will not go up after release. Finally, coming out on the very last day of the month, March 31st, Wales Interactive brings a unique game into the small genre of interactive movie games titled The Complex. Releasing on all major platforms, The Complex is billed as an interactive sci-fi thriller movie. If you've never played games like this, games in this genre use actual film video of people acting out the scenario. You're presented choices after watching the videos, and those choices lead you through the movie's narrative, affecting the outcome and usually taking you to one of several different endings. The Complex takes place in London after a major bio-attack. 2 scientists find themselves in a lockdown laboratory with time, and of course air, running out. Using a choose-your-own-path gameplay, you interact with other characters, your choices eventually leading you to one of 8 distinct endings. Adding to the normal narrative-based gameplay of these types of games, The Complex also adds relationship tracking to gameplay. This affects your eventual outcomes and events within the story, and it also adds personality tracking through the game. At the end of a session, you're provided with an overall score, which also includes a personality score, broken down into 5 personality dimensions or categories. Although these are definitely niche games, there are enough new ideas in the Complex to warrant taking a look if these type of games are up your alley. So that's our look forward in PC gaming for the month of March 2020. Thank you all for tuning in. Remember to hit that big red subscribe button for more episodes, and I will see you next month with more PC games on the other side.